Okay, so I'm going to be making a follow-up tutorial to the basics of economy and building workers. So in the previous tutorial we were learning all about always be building a worker. So once again we're already at that point, we already know always. So we'll bring up the production tab so you can see that I'm always building workers. And basically what we're going to be talking about now is building extra workers and base expansion, because you cannot win off one base unless you're really good at being an aggressive player, attacking early, and really good at your tactics. So you really will need that second base to be able to win the game most of the time, if not a third base. So as you can see, really standard opening wall off here, building blah 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 blah. Anyways, I'm going to skip forward a bit. And we just pause right here and take a look at what we have under units. You'll notice I have 23 SCVs, 23. That's about the number that I say is perfect for just one base. Basically 2 per mineral patch plus 3 on each of the geysers. So 23 is around there, but I'm actually going to be continuing to pump out SCVs, if you notice. So let's slow this down just a little bit. So I'm going to keep building them. The reason why I'm going to keep building these SCVs, even though I already have as many as I need, is I'm going to want to use them for a second base when I expand. I'm going to be able to move them out quickly, and I want to be able to put them down here and start mining a lot faster than having to wait to build those SCVs. So, and they're slightly inefficient when you have 3 per patch, but they still do a little bit of help, so it's not a huge loss. As you notice right there, I just got attacked by the opponent. And so this is actually my timing to expand that I'm going to use. I just got attacked and I beat him off, so I'm coming down, I'm throwing down a couple bunkers for defense. This will greatly help defend because it is early in the game. Make sure that I don't get outnumbered or killed if he chose to stay on one base and build up a bigger army, because I am going to have to spend a lot of extra minerals to build that. Now I could have just gotten away with 1 bunker probably instead of 2, but I'm going to build 2 just as precaution, just waiting for my minerals to get high enough. But of course I am still building army and SCVs, so it does take a little while to get up there, but I will be throwing that down very soon. And
it's on.
Okay, so anyways, now, so as you can see, I've been building a lot. If we look under units, I'm now up to 35 just off of 1 base. So that's a lot of SCVs, and the reason why I have so many is because that way I can transfer about 10 to 15 down here right away. It's going to make a huge difference in how much. And also notice, just because I have so many, I am still managing to get a pretty high income just off of 1 base. This is 20, where you're getting a lot lower income.
Additional supply.
So as you can see, I just grabbed all of those extra SCVs and transfer them over to this base. Almost didn't catch that there. So as you'll notice, I didn't quite transfer enough. Later in the game I will notice that I didn't transfer enough, because you can just sort of look at your base and you can see, are any of these guys going to a mineral patch and then trying to find a new one? That means that you have more than 2 on each patch, so you can bring a few over. And of course getting the orbital command, because this base is easily defended, as well as being the gateway into my main, so I have no worries about this one getting attacked anymore early on, and it'll be nice and safe. So, and then of course I'll start building SCVs. Now what you will notice is this command center over here, after a while I will actually put the rally point to here. That way I can have both them building and here. Because I don't need any extra SCVs at this base, so I might as well have them both going here. And that way I'll also have some extra SCVs for when I expand to my 3rd base. Now I just salvaged that bunker because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be moving my army to a central location to try and get map control for my 3rd expansion. That way when I have map control, it keeps our army from being able to push out. It gives me freedom to expand up to a wider area, and it's much easier to defend if you can keep them bottled up rather than if you have to run between bases to defend them. So of course, another thing that I really forgot to mention, just because things are going so fast, about the mules. So a little bit, oops, not in the right place. Anyways, before I threw down this extra expansion, I actually wasn't placing mules for quite a while.
It's on.
As you can see, my energy just keeps going up and up and up and up. The reason why is because I know I'm going to be building this expansion, which I just did, and I'm going to save those mules to put down at the expansion, because I want to try and leave minerals in my main as long as possible. So if I throw down the mules right now, I'm going to be at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of these minerals getting a lot smaller.
Additional supply depots required.
And basically why I'm doing that is because if this base gets taken out early on, because I am spending the extra resources on expanding instead of an army, then I want to be able to still have lots of mineral at my main base to be able to mine off of and survive off for a little bit if it takes me a while to rebuild this expansion. So that's just a little thing that you do, is you want to try and mine heavily on your expansions rather than your main base whenever possible. So I'm just saving that up a bit there. And the other thing too is I had those bunkers there for extra defense, so I can afford to not have that extra income coming in for a little bit, because those bunkers will give me a defensive advantage. Okay, so that's just another thing to know. Just a little thing on the side there. So as you can see, starting to fully saturate this base, throwing down mules when I can, building SCVs, and of course always building up your army, always building up okay, I'm going to move them out from map control now, well, in a few seconds apparently.
Ready for dust off.
So what's going to happen on this map is this ramp that leads into your main base as well as your natural expansion, and then of course you got to guard from this ramp once the rocks are broken. But the nice thing here is if I put my units here, you know, that's a pretty good position because I can defend this ramp and I can defend this ramp. This ramp comes up into this third expansion, and that's the most direct route. Of course, I'm trying to keep sight of just a little bit here. I might have tried to sneak around, and look on the minimap, I might have snuck around and gone a long way to my base, making my units out of position. So you also want to be careful of stuff like that. Just make sure you have a little bit of sight so you can see if they try and sneak around. But also, this army is in a pretty good position just to be able to attack him and react to any of my bases getting attacked. So that is basically map position for my third expansion. I didn't use a defensive tactic after push. I just sort of tried to get map control, good position, so I can build. As you see, I just transferred a ton of workers from... There was a bunch of idle workers here. They fully finished, so transfer them up there. Also, I can transfer some extra workers from here if I have extra workers. Now, one thing I'm going to say is I'm actually going to build this into an orbital command, into a planetary fortress instead of an orbital command. This is a little bit harder to defend than this base and my main one, because this one really only has one choke. This one has a couple of chokes to get into. Makes it harder for my army to get into position to defend it, especially if I'm out attacking. And this is the most forward base, so the planetary fortress will buy me time to be able to defend this base.
Mineral field depleted.
As you notice, I just used my army to sort of check, make sure they hadn't grabbed the high yield expansion. You always want to just do a little bit of scouting. Map control doesn't mean just stay in the middle of the map. It means you got to move around a little bit. As you can see, I just used stim pack on my army to easily win that battle. Made my units a lot stronger. And once again, as you can see, as always, building supply depots and different buildings in the shadow so that you can see things in advance. Also, I left a marine at the Selnaga to have good sight. 15 minerals, not very expensive to have good sight. Of course, I've got some extra guys here now because I'm starting to get really low on minerals. So I will actually be transferring some of these guys soon up to here, because I have so many extras and they're not needed or used right here. Now the other thing too is if you are down to one base and you're not going to expand again, you can take some of your SCVs or your workers, whatever they are, and you can attack your opponent with them. Hopefully you'll kill them off, leaving you with more supply to build up your army stronger. Only do that if you're pretty certain you're going to win and you don't need any more bases. Of course, I've got 9,000 minerals. I really don't need more bases right now.
Mineral field depleted.
So yeah, that was the basics about building and expanding bases, because you do need to expand bases. Remember, the key concepts here are you want to be able to defend your bases, so whether that's through a defensive position or through map control. Also, worker transfer. You always want to build some extra workers in advance. Now, if we look at how many units I have, oops, wrong tab, I've got 51. At one point, I did have 53 SCVs. That was my max of the game. I really like to float around that 50 number. 50 is enough to keep two bases fully saturated, plus have you know, your bases which have no minerals, they can continue harvesting the Vespians. So somewhere around that 50-55 mark. Some players will go as high as 65. Don't go too high, because if you go too high, when you max out at 200 army, your army size, if you don't count workers, will only be 125, whereas your opponent, if he's sat with 50, he'll have 150. So he'll have 25 more army than you, making his army stronger and making it easier for him to beat you. So you do have to be careful not to make too many, but you do want to make quite a few, you know, sort of that 50-55 is a pretty nice number if you're always going to have two bases running at a time. Okay, I'll just make sure I didn't forget anything. I don't think I did. Of course, you know, even though I was building those bases, you're always, you know, you got a lot of things you got to do to win games. You know, I had these going, I had my upgrades going. I was even upgrading my Thors as well as the shields for my dropships. I didn't upgrade them too much, just because, you know, the Thors are more important. And then of course I was always building units out of my factories and barracks using hotkeys. As you can see, I have a bunch of different hotkeys down here, so I was always using those to be able to build units and make my army stronger. And as you can see, I just placed a cute little couple supply depots. That was just so that I had sight on these parts of the map without having to leave my army there. So, okay, I'm just rambling. Anyways, so I'm going to leave you, now that you know some skills about base expansion, I'm going to leave you with just watching my army completely obliterate the other guy. If you like watching that, the tutorial is finished, so.
Mineral field depleted.
I'm moving up all of my army before attacking, because I use the attack command. They'll only move part way up and they'll block everybody from getting up the ramp. So you want to keep right clicking to make them run up the ramp and get all your units up here so that all your forces can attack at once. They're much stronger that way. And of course you can hold down the shift key to tell it to attack multiple buildings.